Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith, mostly sports. Today, Kenny, World Series matchups are set. Are you surprised, shocked? How you feeling? Diamondbacks, Rangers.
Um, I wouldn't have called that at the beginning of the year, let alone 2 years ago, but we'll get more into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of manager stuff is happening. Bob Melvin goes from the Padres to the Giants. Dusty Baker resigns. uh, some managers going to be on the move here, and maybe we'll bring back some of the older guys too. Greg Counsell looks like is going to be the guy that the Mets will bring him as they're interviewing him in the next day or so.
Well, that'll be good. Are they hoping a little Diamondbacks magic will kind of help him too?
Oh, wow. Right. Um, we got to do our NBA preview. The Lakers hung in for most of that game last night, but oh my gosh, the Denver Nuggets are just so good.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've had a defending champ. They might fit that bill. We'll see.
Well, yeah, we gotta definitely hit them up. We'll talk a little bit of NFL, but you ready to get into this?
Let's get into it.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny, and
Kenny squared.
it's Sports on the Positive Tip. Kenny, oh my gosh, what a sports night last night. Now, I wasn't feeling well last night because I had my flu shot on Monday, and I felt fine Monday night through most of yesterday morning, and all of a sudden I got a fever. I had chills. I felt nauseous. So I had an excuse to just sit around from about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon and do nothing. And I did nothing but watch all of the game 7 last night, flip back and forth to the Lakers in Denver. And I watched a little bit of hockey. The Blackhawks and the Bruins was a very interesting matchup. And the Bruins, for the first time in their history, have started off 6-0. But enough about that. What did you think? Let's start here as what an upset this is with the Diamondbacks, the 84-win Diamondbacks knocking off the Brewers, sweeping the Dodgers, and now beating the Phils after they were down 2-0. This team with all this swagger and everything. I'm not knocking the Phils. I like all their players. But boy, oh boy, the Diamondbacks almost out of nowhere just really, really handle business. And then to take not only game 6, but game 7 on the road in what can be the most hostile environment in baseball in Philadelphia. Talk to me, man. What were your thoughts? I know you've got a lot of interesting stats on both these teams. I'm going to shut up and leave it to you.
All right. Well, I'll start with the Diamondbacks, or I guess the overall World Series matchup. 84 wins is the lowest win total of any team that's ever made the World Series. People have issue with that, and I say, oh well.
Well, I think did the Mets win less than that in 80 and 73? I think they still hold that. I think the Mets won 82 games or 83 games or something like that in 73.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
but
might be it.
yeah,
But either way,
either way, 84 wins. That's 84 and
84
78.
wins is
Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah.
And I think to me, what's crazier is this team 2 years ago or lost 110 games,
Wow.
and that to me shows like because I know people like you look at it overall, it's probably some people will have an issue with it as far as baseball goes overall. Because like the Dodgers aren't in it, the Yankees aren't in it, the Astros aren't in it. Like teams that have been consistently the top teams, the Braves this year. But like I think it shows me that like if you are even if you lost 100 games, like look at the Kansas City Royals this year. is it out of the realm of possibility for them
No,
to knock on the World Series in 2 years? Like,
no, it's
I
not.
think that's exciting.
Before the
Um,
Astros started their run, remember they had like 3 straight 100 loss seasons as well. So did the Detroit Tigers before they started, their run. So I agree. It gives a lot of hope to teams that are rebuilding.
yeah, and so like I think that makes it exciting. Um, and yeah, the two teams they combined for their two their wins combined for the least amount of wins for any World Series matchup. I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
Let's say like 187 or something, but doesn't matter. Um, but I think like you look at the Diamondbacks and yeah, knocking off the Brewers who have really good pitching,
Hmm.
knocking off the Dodgers who are always in the hunt, and then knocking off the defending NL champions. And also kind of like what you said, the way that they did it. Like it's one thing like out of nowhere, oh, this team got really hot. They were down 0-2 after losing both games at home. And then they were down 3-2 heading back on the road and they were able to pull it off. And I think it goes as a testament to their manager. I really loved kind of their mantra of we still got this, because I feel like especially talking about a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a long time, you're talking about a team that it's kind of the upstart team that people really liked, but like you didn't think that they would get that far. And once they kind of hit their ceiling, that was it. Like we saw that with the Orioles. They have a
Hmm.
great team. They'll be great next year.
Yeah.
But like once you saw that they were a little bit out of their element, there was no coming back for them.
Yeah.
But like is it Tori Lavulo? Do I have that
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I think it's a testament to his management. I think that they've done a great job there. Um, and yeah, like I think for me, one of the biggest things this whole playoff run shows is that because in the NBA, if you are, I mean, with the exception of Miami last year, like if you are a 5, 6, 7, 8 seed, you'll be really happy if you make the conference finals.
Yeah.
But like you're not getting that much further.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, like in the new format, we have 2 straight years where a team is the 6th seed and makes it all the way to the World Series. The Phillies last year as well.
Yeah.
And like both of those teams wouldn't have made the playoffs
That's
if it was 2
amazing,
years
isn't
ago.
it? That is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And like I look at the other side with, first of all, I think another big thing for me when it's not the Yankees, I always love seeing two teams go up that haven't won it in a long time.
Yep.
And so we have ourselves a matchup of a team that hasn't won since, I'm not going to say the date because it still hurts my heart, and a team that's never won the World Series.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, let's say you're a 20-year-old that's rooting for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You've never even seen them in a World Series. And now they have a chance to do it.
This is true. Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. And I want to come back to the Diamondbacks and I'll touch real quick on the American League. It just seemed like, to your point, right? It just seemed like the bright lights didn't bother them at all. I mean, they get smoked in game 2. What was game 2? 10-0. And so you're
Something
thinking
like that.
you're thinking that this series is not coming back to Philadelphia, right? But they go out there and their pitching was just so good after that, especially their bullpen. I want to get to that in a second, but they go out and they win 2-1, and then they win a close game in game 4, 6-5, I think. And so then the Phillies gather themselves and they come back home up 3-2. I mean, it's usually they're going to win one of those 2 games. But their pitch, I mean, this Philly team, which with this high-powered offense, it it only scored 3 runs in the last 2 games in 18 innings. And Castellanos, what happened to him? Oh my gosh. He picked the worst
Nothing
time to go
tragic
into.
happened.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he picked the worst. Trey Turner also, man, the last couple of games, they picked the worst time, it's right that Castellanos. I know you watched that. I watched that video that you sent me. It's crazy. But I think that though, let's also give credit to their pitching and to their do you know he's been their manager for 9 years now? So that is a real testament to how the Diamondbacks through those losing years, they stuck with him, who they felt was a good manager. I mean, and he's made the playoffs once or twice before. They really just kind of fell off the map in, in 2021 and in 2020 and 2019. But um, he's like, I think, the highest tenured manager in the majors now. But I texted you this in game 6. Merrill Kelly, he's dealing, man. I mean, he was very inconsistent, I remember, during the year, but he's dealing in 5 innings. What is it, 70 something pitches? He comes out and he doesn't give high five to the pitching coach. He doesn't want to shake Torrey's hand. He storms away and he doesn't, usually they stay on the bench for the rest of the game. He goes in the clubhouse, you know. And I texted you, oh my gosh, is this Kevin Cash and Dave Roberts? Great managers, but they drive me crazy with these pitching changes. I'm like, but Torrey saw something. And the Phillies for the rest of the night, they don't get a sniff. I'm like, wow, because that could have ended really, really bad if the Phillies had all of a sudden come back. And I think the score was 4-1 at the time. But with their offense, they can easily come back from 3 runs. But listen, he went with his gut, I think, a lot too, because, last night he stuck with the left-hander who had been really inconsistent. And sure enough, here comes the Philly rally. But oh my gosh, they bring in the guy they normally would bring in the 8th inning, and they bring him in the 7th, and he shuts it down in both the 7th and 8th. Kenkel, I mean, they're pitching that old adage, right? That good pitching will stop good hitting, was never true. Now, let me just address what you said earlier real quick about fans are fussing at the Braves, the Dodgers, the Orioles, all these teams aren't it. Here's the deal. Take care of your business. I never complained once last year when the Mets, lost to the Padres. They didn't take care of their business. They should have beaten the Padres, period. That's it. The Braves should have handled their business against the Phillies. So should have the Dodgers. I mean, the Diamondbacks, nothing bothered them. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, I really would have loved to see Kodai be the Rookie of the Year. Sometimes it's not fair when they're 30 years old like he is, but he had a great year. There's no way he's winning Rookie of the Year. This guy is a special player, man. And for him to get those 3 hits plus a sacrifice fly in a game 7 as a rookie, and Marte is probably the best kept secret in baseball. He's been consistent for years. I mean, he's had years where he hit 32 home runs, knocked in 100 RBIs. He's done that every year for the Diamondbacks, but now they see him, So kudos to them. It's a big disappointment for the Phillies. They should have been back in there, but they didn't handle business these last couple of games. Real quick on the Rangers and the Astros. What a great series that was. Game 6 was a classic, with your guy Altuve hitting that big home run and it looked like the Astros had the momentum. But listen, the Rangers we've been saying Bruce Bochy all year long, right from the beginning. And boy, oh boy, did he make a difference, to that team. I mean, you mentioned they lost over 100 games 2 years ago. No shade on Chris Woodward, but there's not many managers better than Bruce Bochy. And I didn't realize this. He's the 3rd manager to take 3 teams to the World Series. I'm forgetting the other guy's name. I read it earlier, but somebody in the 20s, the 1900s and the 20s, or the early 1900s in the 1920s, took 3 teams to the World Series. But then I forgot about Dick Williams, who was a great manager, who manages 1967 Red Sox, and then the 72 and 73 A's. He left. He didn't manage 74 A's because he left in a contract dispute, I remember. And the Yankees, I remember this. Yankees signed him in that offseason to be their manager, and the commission avoided the contract because he was technically still on the contract with Oakland. So he never did manage the Yankees, but he managed the 84 Padres. And so he was a great manager. But Bochy now here. And the other quick fact about him that they said last night, he's never lost a deciding game, whether it was a deciding game 5, whether it was a deciding game 7, he's 6-0 in those. And so he just was, to me, the X factor, because the talent is just about there. You can make an argument the Astros might have a little more talent and have done it longer, But Texas has some really, really good, talented, young, talented players. And how about Adolis Garcia? He's another one like Corbin Carroll. The spotlight didn't bother him. In fact, he thrived in it. And it begs you to wonder, man, why did the Cardinals hold on to him? The Cardinals, have let go a couple of really good guys over the last few years. The big star in Tampa was with the Cardinals for the first couple of years, and so was Garcia, and they became really good friends, by the way. From their time with the Cardinals, and both defecting, from Cuba, Randy Rosarina, I'm talking about. And so but he was their stud. He hits an opposite field home run. I mean, I don't like any of that. I still don't. I can't get used to that. And it was my guy who kind of, one of the early guys doing it was my guy Piazza. But I hate that. I mean, he was that. I never saw a guy charge the catcher like he did. He didn't charge them out. He went right after Maldonado. And I think because they had some beef back in like July, August. You remember when the benches cleared with them, with those two teams before? So that's probably why he figured, oh, you ordered him to do it. Anyway, it's going to be a great World Series, I think. I'll watch as much of it as I can. Maybe a lot of America won't because the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, but these two teams handle their business.
Yeah. Also, with first, I know we're going to get to managers in a sec, but shout out Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
And what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy had to navigate one of the biggest scandals, definitely in this the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
But also finally winning the World Series and everything. But I think also you look at how the Texas Rangers kind of built their team. You'd said young players. I totally agree with that. They also did really good at finding the key acquisitions. Something I think that's gotten overlooked is how good Corey Seager continues to be in the playoffs. And
they spent money. They're not cheap. They spent some money.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
And it really paid off. I mean, he was good. Nathan Eovaldi also signing him. And then big trades. I mean, you look at Max Scherzer. I know he didn't have a great game 7, but I mean, he gave you some length. Jordan Montgomery too. I think all of that really helped, but obviously the big X factor has been Bruce Bochy and what he's done. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point that we shouldn't miss because their free agent signings were. I mean, DeGrom got hurt, right? I mean, imagine DeGrom pitching in this series; it wouldn't have gone 7 games. A healthy DeGrom, more than likely, right? But Corey Seager, look how that has worked out. I mean, he had an unbelievable year. Remember, he missed the first month or so of the season, but once he got going, I mean, and Marcus Semien has worked out great. I know, he didn't have a great year with Toronto, so nobody thought anybody was going to sign him to the big deal. The Rangers took a shot. It's worked out. And you're right. I know, watching Jordan Montgomery kind of sticks in your craw a little bit, and listen,
Bring him back.
I thought, listen, if I have one criticism of Bochy, but it still worked out, I thought he took Scherzer out a little too quick because, if anything with Max, he's going to battle. And he had better stuff than he did in, what was it, game 2 that he started? I thought it was 3 innings. He had 34 pitches. I mean, you can't let this all-timer, go a little longer, but Bochy's it's game 7. You know what I mean? We're not fooling around here. Just why I thought Rob, Thompson, I liked him going with Suarez because Suarez also is one of those guys that the spotlight doesn't bother him. But the second pitcher he brought in, it's escaping me, not Alvarado, but I'm like, why is he sticking with this guy? You know what I mean? It's game 7, empty, and then he brought in Zach Wheeler, which was good, and obviously he did great. But that pitcher in between, he stuck with a little too long. Whereas that Bochy, I don't care if this is a future Hall of Famer, first ballot or not, he's coming out. I thought it was a little quick, but it worked out. Let's talk about the managers. Obviously, the Rangers, that was the best thing they did. And Chris Young is their general manager. You would remember Chris Young as a player with the Mets, as a pitcher with the Mets and several other teams, the Padres, a few others. I mean, that was just brilliant to coax him out of retirement and bring him back. But Dusty Baker, looks like he is stepping aside. If he's not 73 yet, he's going to be, because I know he won the World Series at 72. he's had a remarkable career. Hall of Fame for Dusty Baker, do you think?
Yeah, Dusty Baker should be Hall of Famer. I think also he's like one of the like most beloved managers
Yeah.
in the last like
Yeah.
20, 25 years. I mean, no one has a bad thing to say about him. So,
And
and I mean, he took it over the top by because his biggest thing was always I could never win the big game, and then made it to a World Series and then won another one. So
yeah, clutch player, excellent player, MVP of either the 76, I think 77 championship series with the Dodgers and Phillies. Had a good long playing career. And you pull up his stats, he had some years that were really big, but he was consistent, over the years and was just very clutch, especially in his years with the Dodgers. So an opening in San Diego now, and you mentioned Buck as probably an ideal guy there, opening in Houston as well. Opening with the Mets, I would say 95% that'll be Counsell. Um, because I just think that the relationship he has with Stearns, you still have an opening with the Angels. Who are you thinking is going to start to fill some of these openings?
did you mention the Guardians too? They're still
Guardians as well, yeah. And you said that there's a favorite for that opening, right?
yeah, Stephen Vogt,
Yeah,
who retired 2 years ago.
yeah,
I think you might see another random name like that, like a former player. I don't know. I wonder. I don't think it'll be the case. Well, actually, I think one that you might consider, because he has a little bit of managerial experience now, would be Mark DeRosa.
yeah.
'Cause he managed Team USA. I wonder if people will start to knock on his door a little bit.
Right, right. He's
Um,
been talked about before, yeah.
yeah. So I also wonder if Sean Casey, because word came out today that he is not coming back as the Yankees hitting coach.
Hmm.
He says due to family issues, so maybe not. But
Yeah,
I wonder if, let's say, like I don't know, like a Houston Astros would want to take a flyer on him, or
yeah,
maybe San Diego. I don't know. Obviously Boone's still there, so
yeah.
I'd be surprised at this point if they fired Boone. But if so, I think if the Yankees fired him, he wouldn't be out of a job for very long.
No, I think someone would snatch him up. Um, I wonder though, when I think about a player recently retired that it was always a leader, I think about, Yadier Molina. I wonder if he'd be interested in managing,
Yeah, he apparently he's going to be taking like a full-time job at the Cardinals. I think as like a coach or something like that.
yeah, I could see him being an heir apparent there,
Yeah.
for a bit. Do you think Joe Madden will get will get a call, or Mike Scioscia, one of these guys that have been out now for a few years?
Uh Maybe Joe Madden. I
Yeah,
think Mike Stocia's probably done.
probably done. Okay.
Um I think Buck might end up in one of these spots, whether it's San Diego or Houston.
Yeah.
Uh but I don't know, because they're like someone should make a flyer at Joe Girardi. Like I think Joe Girardi would actually be a really good fit in San Diego now I'm thinking about it.
Well, I
Because he's the
agree.
guy
Yeah.
that kind of like puts the thumb down a little bit and isn't gonna cater as much to the players and
Yeah.
also not really care.
Yeah. I wonder if he's done, and he's got the steady job with the Cubs now in the booth. I wonder if he's kind of done with it. I don't know. I think there's some good names out there. It's funny. You always hear some of these bench coaches, like Ari Chavez with the Mets, I don't, would think would be a good manager at some point, but the Mets were pretty clear that they're not going to hire internal. So, Carlos Beltran hasn't gotten an interview. And I don't even think they've interviewed Chavez. So, they're really looking from outside the organization. So,
Well,
yeah,
that's two interesting names though.
yeah.
Um, I mean, Beltran has the slight Houston tie
Oh
for
yeah.
that half a season.
Well, yeah,
Um, but I don't know if anyone's going to give him a shot or not.
yeah,
They should, but I don't
they
know if
should.
anyone's going to.
Yeah. I mean, Alex Cora got back in the Houston manager is still managing Detroit, so I mean, you gave those guys a chance. You got I don't see why you wouldn't give Beltran another chance. Is that staying out? And we'll jump to the NBA. Is that staying gone from the Astros now? Do you think? Did Dusty?
No.
No.
Um,
But see, you're a Yankee
I
fan,
mean,
so I don't know if it's still your bias. I haven't heard anybody bring it up in a long time except you.
I've seen it on comments. Anytime the Astros do anything, people are
Yeah.
always posting gifs of trash cans and whatnot. Um, and like I think especially the main guys that are still there,
Right.
because even like George Springer, you don't really hear it that much. Carlos Correa
Yeah.
hasn't gotten as much flack, but
Yeah.
you hear it still with Alex Bregman. Definitely hear it with
Oh,
Altuve.
with Altuve. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, like from a pure baseball perspective, Jose Altuve at like 5'6" or whatever he actually is, and like his full story and also what he's done
Yeah.
really in his postseason career has been
Unbelievable.
incredible.
Yeah.
But I'd be a little surprised if, well, I shouldn't say I wouldn't be surprised. At this point, I don't think he would make the Hall of Fame, even though he probably has the numbers, because
Yeah.
I think people will just see him as a cheater.
Yeah. I mean, he's been a batting champion, and you think about for his size, how he hits home runs. And, in my day, there was a player named Freddie Patek who was about the same size. Lasted a long time. He played with the Pirates and a lot of times with the Royals, those Royal teams that went at it with the Yankees in the mid 70s. He was their shortstop, and he was a good player. Didn't have the power that Altuve has, though. Altuve is an all-star every year, but he doesn't get. It's so funny because I always ask, what do you want to be known for? And is he known for just this inspirational figure who's small and yet, shows that you could play baseball at no matter what size you are, you can hit home runs at that size, right? It's all about contact. Um, Yet people still, because of this scandal, they still kind of hold back with adulation, for him. And he's been one of the best postseason players, I'll say it, of all time. And we talked about a few
Yeah,
weeks back. He's been one of the best of all time. And all right, let's jump to our NBA preview. Should be a lot of fun. Oh, before we do that, what's your prediction? Diamondbacks or Rangers?
man, it's tough. This is one of those World Series where I love that I don't care about it, like as far as who I want to win.
Yeah, me too.
But I think I'm gonna go Rangers in 7.
Okay.
Um,
All
they have
right.
home field and they have really good pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, Arizona has good pitching too, but I see it as revenge for 2001.
I'll say I'm with you. I'm with you with Texas. I don't think the series will go 7. No, I think it'll go 5. So I'm going to say Texas in 5. But I don't think any of us will be surprised if Diamondbacks win this series. All right, NBA. Let's jump in. Kicked off last night. I texted you that I don't know why the Lakers don't move the ball more, and I think that they have I think they fortified their team with a couple of other little signings. I think Cam Reddish, our guy. I think once he gets unleashed there, he'll be a really good addition for that team. I like the moves that they made, and they just have a really solid team. But boy, oh boy, they didn't move the ball, and Anthony Davis fell asleep in the second half last night. But the Nuggets, as we saw, are deserved champs. They're so good. I watched even some of the pregame ceremony where they got their rings and everything. And then the Warriors and Suns. I didn't stay up for that one. I'm sorry, but what I did see, the Suns, and that was without Bradley Beal. They're going to be tough to beat. The Warriors are still good. I think they have another year's run in them. I think Chris Paul fit into that team pretty comfortably. But let's do it this way. Let's go in by conference in the East. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you who you think is the most interesting team this year. Who do you think will underachieve this year? And who do you think is going to be the surprise team this year in both conferences? So I'm going to hit you on your feet here real quick. And first, I'll start in the East. Who do you think is the most interesting team to watch in the East?
Ooh, that's a toughie because there's a few different answers there.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
going with
Doesn't
the
have to be one.
Celtics though.
Celtics, okay.
Because like they're coming off of a year where they definitely underachieved last year compared to making the NBA Finals. Jaylen Brown, now the highest paid player in the NBA by average annual value. So there's going to be a lot more pressure on that team. But also Drew Holiday will be a very interesting fit. I think he fits so well there.
Yeah.
It'll be very, very interesting.
Okay.
I think the team that will underachieve the most will probably be the Sixers.
Okay.
They're just an absolute mess between Harden playing but not playing, showing up but then not wanting to play. Like, this is giving me the beginning of that Houston season before he got traded to the Nets, where he came in like 8,000 pounds and just like barely played basketball. And that's not good for the Sixers. It might be good for the Knicks because that might mean that Embiid wants out and the Knicks will hopefully not trade the entire farm for him, but give up something.
Yeah.
But I do think that they've kind of hit their wall. I mean, you might see a little bit of a difference because they got Nick Nurse there and everything, but
he's a coach, man. He's a championship coach. What team do you think in the East is going to surprise the most?
I might be biased here, but I'm going to go with the Knicks.
Okay.
I think right now, like, it's clear the top two teams in the East are the Bucks and the Celtics. But like, if you're looking at that second tier, teams such as the Cavs, maybe the Hawks, the Sixers, I think that the Knicks can be the team that is like on top of that, especially like kind of building off the momentum of last year. Hopefully everyone can stay healthy. You get a good year from Julius Randle. We'll see. Hopefully you can get a couple all-stars this year too. I feel like they always kind of get shafted a little bit there.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson should have been an all-star last year.
Oh, no doubt. The Knicks didn't make many changes, but I actually think that's an advantage. I mean, if we trade away Obi Toppin and we sign Dante, but I actually think that can be an advantage, that now it's another year of playing together. All right, I'm going to fire away at mine real quick. I think the most interesting team for me in the East is the Bucks. I am fascinated, Kenny, to see. This is probably in my lifetime going to be, on paper, one of the best inside-outside duos, that and pairings. I think this is just the perfect pairing. If you have Giannis on the inside and Damian Lillard, firing up jump shots, on the outside. I'm so interested to see. I don't know about their depth. I think they'll miss Holiday. Holiday was really a missing piece when they won the title a few years back, but I just think that they are going to be must-see TV, especially this first part of the year. Here's a team that I think will underachieve. I think that the Miami Heat, who went to the finals last year as the number 8 seed, I think they're going to underachieve. I think that the guys that they didn't sign and they didn't really fortify their bench, those guys were just money. That team, it's a mystery why they underachieved in the first half last year, but that team was the number 1 seed 2 years ago and then last year, and it was because of the depth that they had, I felt. And, they make the key acquisition also of getting Kevin Love. And those guys from Gabe Vincent, Max Schuss, I mean, those guys were just so good. And I mean, teams just didn't know how to play them. And them not really replacing those guys. And listen, Pat Riley will go on the waiver wire and he'll do something. He'll pick up a couple of, players that'll surprise us. But I just see that team taking a step back. I could be wrong. Miami, you can't count on Jimmy Butler. He's just such a great player. But I just see them taking a step back. I will tell you real quick, the team that I think that will surprise everybody is the Detroit Pistons. Actually, and I picked actually, no, I'm going to stay with it. I put the Orlando Magic there too, because I think that they're probably going to be a little bit better 1 year in. But the Pistons with Monty Williams now as their coach. And I think they're three young players, another year under their belt with Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, Marvin Bagley III. Those guys are good players. Potentially Cunningham could be a star. And I think that, under Monty Williams' guidance, that they'll start to really, really develop. I like their bench. They picked up Joe Harris, who I think will have a second, a second coming here. I don't know what happened with him the last year and a half with the Nets, but I think that he's a excellent shooter and player, one of the best shooters in the league a few years ago. Alec Burks, I think, brings what he brings to the table. They've got the other Bogdanovich there as well. So they've got a little bit of a mix with veterans and young guys. But to me, the X factor is Monty Williams. I'm not, I think they'll come close to. I think they'll at least get to the play in rather. In terms of getting to the playoffs this year, I think Monty Williams is that good of a coach. We saw that in Phoenix. Phoenix will regret. I think they're lucky they replaced him with a guy like Frank Vogel, who I think is an excellent coach as well. But I think at some point in the season, Phoenix will regret, losing Monty Williams. But I think the Pistons are my surprise team.
Wow, that's a good one. The West is interesting.
Yeah.
Teams. I'm going to go with 3 teams very quick of teams I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
San Antonio's one.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a prospect with this much hype as Wembanyama has probably since LeBron.
Since LeBron,
you might make an argument for Zion, but
Zion,
also
yeah.
It's just not the same. It'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens there. Another team that's very interesting. Well, Dallas. I mean, I don't really have to say much more with them.
Yeah.
But they're very interesting.
Yeah.
And also New Orleans, because I can't figure them out.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of on the Zion note, if he's healthy, that team can be very dangerous in the West.
Yeah, their record with him is really, really good. I want to say it's like 30, 35 games over 500 overall with him. So you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but then also the question is, I don't know if he's going to be healthy. And I think the team that's going to surprise everyone, at least in the West, I flirted with a couple, but I'm going with OKC.
Okay.
They have a lot of good young guys. They were very close to making the play-in last year. Oh gosh, what is his name? The 7-foot dude's coming back to. That they drafted last year.
From Gonzaga. Yeah. I'm forgetting his name. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I think they could take that next step. They've got a lot of young guys. SGA continues to be like a star out of nowhere. So, I'm going with them. And as far as a team that's going to be disappointing.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be the Suns.
Okay.
I know there's something There's something about that I feel like someone's going to point the finger at somebody.
Wow.
Whether it's pointing a finger at Kevin Durant, Frank Vogel, I don't know. Something seems. I feel like, and I could be wrong. Maybe things go perfectly and everything's fine.
Yeah. Wow.
If not them, then the Clippers, because the Clippers will get hurt at some point. So.
Yeah. I'm not laughing that they get hurt, but they're right now they're healthy, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'd love to see the Clippers do well. I love your picks there. And then I'm going to come back in a second and ask you, so who do you think is going to come out of the East as well as who's going to come out of the West? I'll say mine real quick. I'm with you. I had 3 teams that I couldn't pick one that intrigued me the most. I'm intrigued by the Lakers. I mean, LeBron, 21st season in the league. Will Anthony Davis stay healthy? I loved what they did in the second half, particularly like the last 2 months of last year. I thought that they showed a lot of heart, and for them to get, from the play-in all the way to the conference finals, I know they got swept by Denver. But it'll be interesting to see, can they avoid the bad start this year and hang with teams like the Suns and the Nuggets, for a little bit here. I have the Suns here too, because I'm fascinated to see what that team does. They did get a little bit of depth there, but I didn't think about what you said. I think you're right, actually. I mean, you've got 3 superstars there, and Bradley Beal has never really won anything in his career. But so it'll be interesting how he handles that. I know he was hurt last night, didn't play. But Kevin Durant, this is kind of the last hurrah here. He's getting up there in age as well. And so I think it'll be a great thing if they, for him, if if he leads that team to another championship or to a championship. But you're right now. I think they can go either way, but I'm really fascinated to watch them. The other team I had for obvious reasons is Dallas, and honestly, I'm rooting for Kyrie to do well. I think, stuff is I think if you peel back everything, he's got a good heart. If you peel back the drama queen stuff, that he is, the diva stuff that he is, I think he's got a good heart, and he's another one that's not known for his basketball skills now. He's known for all the other stuff. Whereas that when you watch him play, this guy still is just an unbelievable player. Is he going to go down as an all-time great now? I don't know, because all the other stuff overshadows it, So like we were just talking about with Jose Altuve. I'm surprised that you didn't pick these two teams that I have as underachiever and surprise team. So underachiever, I think, are going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I think Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose add a lot of veteran leadership, but not enough talent to that team. Marcus Smart, I screamed about this. When the Celtics traded him, not that I wanted to see the Celtics do well, but I was like, how do they trade their heart and soul? But when they got Drew Holiday, he's almost a perfect replacement because he's a better player than Marcus Smart. But Marcus Smart brings an intangible, to any team. But I don't think it's going to be enough with this team. Now, Morant doesn't come back till what? He's 24 games out, so and how is he going to be when he comes back? And if it's the West and this team is like 10 games under 500, they're not catching up, not in that conference. So I think that they are going to be big underachievers. I think you got to give this another year for them to kind of get back to where they were. But the team I have as a surprise team is the Houston Rockets. And it's not like they have a bunch of very likable players, but but Ime Udoka, right? Listen, whatever happened with him, it happened. The guy proved he can coach. And so now he's got a fresh start. Hopefully he gets past all of the stuff that happened and he does what he does. He's a really good coach. I love, again, their combination of young guys, and vets. But they're young guys. It begins and ends with Jalen Green. He hasn't, lived up to what everyone thought he would be coming out of college. I think he will now start to develop a little bit more. But when you get a guy like Fred VanVleet, that guy, I think it flew under the radar, that signing. I think that's an unbelievable signing for them. I think he'll do for that team what Jalen Brunson did for the Knicks. I think he's that good. And, they picked up Reggie Bullock. No one really cares for Dylan Brooks, but if he concentrates, he's a very good player. Jeff Green could still play. Victor Oladipo, if he's healthy, he'll still add something. So they've got that good mix of veterans there with the young guys, but it's VanVleet and Udoka. I think again, I'm going to predict that team will at least get into the play-in. Tougher in the West, I know, than in the East, but I think they'll get into the play-in.
I can see that.
Yeah. All right. We could talk about the Knicks in a second. Who do you think is coming out of the East?
Bucks. It's hard. It's going to be hard to beat that matchup.
Okay. Okay.
I think Giannis has a good shot at winning MVP this year.
All right. And I think I know who you're going to say is coming out of the West.
Oh, Denver.
Yeah.
Denver just seems too good. They seem like teams will need like another couple years to kind of catch up to them a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if like Joker gets hurt or something like that.
Yeah. I think one of the also big improved teams will be the Brooklyn Nets. We didn't mention them too much, but I think if Simmons, he's played well in preseason. Let's see, are they going to get to the, finals and go deep into the playoffs? I don't think so, but I think they'll be much improved and a lot of the drama now gone from that team. They'll just play basketball. And I think they have a good coach as well. I'm going to go with you. I'm actually going to go with you in both because it's hard for me to pick against the Nuggets right now. I love how they kept their core together. And I do think that this Buck team is going to be formidable. Part of me says the Celtics. But Kristaps and Drew Holiday, that team is going to be different. They're going to have a different look and feel. We'll see it tonight. But that look and feel may mean that they also could be a little bit more beatable than they have been the last few years. But they could be dangerous with if Porzingis stays healthy. He's such a good inside and outside player. So part of me wanted to say them, but I'm feeling the Bucks. I am concerned with the Bucks depth. Although they had the guy should have been 6th man of the year, right? Bobby Portis, right? It was, I don't want the Knicks. He was good with the Knicks, but the Knicks were like, get him out of here, So, all right, let's talk about the Knicks for a few minutes. We have a few minutes still here left, and then we'll jump to inspiration. What are you thinking with the Knicks? As objectively as we can. We're Knicks fans. Die in the wool. Me for the longest time. You since you were a little guy. What are you thinking this year?
I think this will be a very pivotal year. Because like I'd said, I think they'll be the team that kind of rises to the top out of like that second tier in the East. But also, if they don't, there's going to have to be some kind of shakeup, whether it means, well, obviously, we had talked about it earlier. I don't know why Evan Fournier is still on this team, but like the core of Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, maybe Adam Mitchell Robinson because he's there for a few years. Like if they like grossly underachieve, if they like are struggling around 500, if they end up like fighting to get out of the play-in, then I think there has to be some kind of change. Because like you look at the top of the East and you don't have a guy that you feel like matches up that well. Like Jalen Brunson's great. You can argue he's probably a top 10 player, but you need like a superstar to make it as far as you can. Or you need like 2 very, very good players. And sometimes Julius Randle isn't up for the challenge. Sometimes like RJ Barrett really isn't up for the challenge. Like really you need all 3 of those guys to have really good years, Barrett, Brunson, and Randle, in order to have a shot. I think right now though their ceiling is probably still the Eastern Conference Finals, which I know you and I would both be ecstatic if that happened.
Yeah.
But also like I don't know. It feels like maybe there should be another move here and there somewhere, but I don't know what that is. My hope and prayer is Joel Embiid, but it's still a hope and a prayer at this point. He hasn't even said he wants to get traded. So
Karl Anthony Towns might be more realistic. It's just not going to work in Minnesota with the 2 big men there. They'd be better off trading Gobert because I think Towns is the better player, although Gobert is great defensively. I'm with you on everything with the Knicks. I think I'll tell you the quick advantages. I think them still having a good core and now having a year under their belt, bringing back basically the same team, I think is going to help. I think that Julius Randle will play a little bit more because Obi Toppin, I thought, took some of his minutes. So I think that now if Julius Randle gets hurt, and he's for the most part been healthy, I know he got hurt in the playoffs and everything, then that position is going to be a little lacking. You'll have to play one of those, guys that are competing at center, Jericho Sims or one of those guys in that spot. But I read this today, and if the Knicks do this, I think it'll be a good move. And they're doing it anyway. I read this today. One of the writers said that if Thibodeau would pull the trigger and put RJ on the bench and let him lead the second unit, remember most of the time the last few years, it's been 4 guys off the bench plus RJ for a good part of the game. But if they could just put RJ on the bench and let Quentin Grimes, finally kind of flourish because the 2 of them kind of play the same position, that might be a good thing for the Knicks. It might be. I don't know. I don't know what to make of RJ still. This is his 4th year in the league now. He's still a very good player. He hasn't taken that step to be a consistently great player like we thought he would be coming out of college. Maybe coming off the bench might, help with that. I don't know. Or maybe that will hit his ego a little bit. I don't know. But I think the Knicks have to continue to be. There were times last year, Kenny, that the Knicks were nightmare matchups for teams because of the way they played defense and the way that Brunson, had the inside out game, how he was great at penetrating and getting inside. And there were a lot of nights teams just had no answer for him, because they didn't know if he was going to shoot or pass. And I think that if they continue to build on that, I think that, we need to also see Quickly continue to improve as well. Because the second half, he was really good. Remember, the first half last year, we were like, what happened to him, So he needs to be really consistent and improve, because he's also one of those guys that is a tough matchup for teams. Teams don't know how to really defend him. So I think that, to me, for the Knicks to take that next step, get to 50 wins, I think that's doable. And yeah, go deep into the playoffs. I think conference finals, because think about the other teams in the East that we know that they can beat. We know they can beat the Cavaliers. We know they can beat the Hawks. We know they can beat the Pacers. We know that they could beat Miami. Celtics and the Bucks are the only two that kind of, they might be a little bit better than us, but we seem to have the Celtics number in the regular season. So, we'll see. I think I'm looking forward to it. My last quick key for the Knicks, Kenny, is that they need to get off to a good start. It seems like with Thibodeau, even the 2 years that they did well and made the playoffs, they scrambled to get there. I want to see them have a good, consistent season. Like after the first 10 games, be like 8-2 or something like that, or 7-3. Not be like 5-5 or 4-6 like they have been these last few years. So
yeah, they can't be like 7-10 when we're knocking on
right.
Christmas. Like
right,
that's not gonna work.
Not gonna work. All right. Well, are you ready for some inspiration?
Yeah.
All right. And we'll get back to talking a lot more football next week, Jets and Giants. So I think we'll have a lot to talk about with that as they play each other this week. My inspiration is a little bit different. I'll be quick. An actor named Richard Roundtree died yesterday. He was 81 years old. And, as a kid, it was very rare to see an African-American actor play kind of a superhero, not a superhero, but kind of a hero, and in 1971, a movie called Shaft came out. It was a huge box office hit, and Richard Roundtree was the star of that movie. And, I'm 11 years old, and my parents, it was rated R. My parents probably shouldn't have taken me to see it, but they did because they wanted me to see, hey, there's a action. We had, not we, but African-Americans had Sidney Poitier at that time, who by the time that hit 1971, his big years were in the 50s and 60s, but he wasn't an action, hero. And, Richard Roundtree he made 3 Shaft movies, and he played in a lot of other movies. He never really got a big starring role again after those 3 movies. But here's why he's my inspiration. As a lot of the audience know, and you obviously know, I'm a cancer survivor, but Richard Roundtree was very, very outspoken and upfront about his cancer journey, because several years ago he got diagnosed with cancer. But as a man, it was very, very rare, and it still is kind of rare for a man to get breast cancer. And he owned it, and he talked about it. He talked about how shocked he was at the diagnosis, but he talked about how men should also make sure they get tested, because he had a double mastectomy. Both of, I'm going to say breasts, it's not the same, obviously, but both his breasts were removed. And he became a spokesperson for men getting tested for breast cancer. And I thought that to me was much more important than his acting career. So a little bit different today, but he passed away yesterday, Richard Roundtree. I don't know if he passed away from cancer or not. I don't know if it recurred. They didn't say what he passed away from. He's 81 years old. And I just thought he was an inspiration for that fight. That's my inspiration.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Mine is kind of an interesting one as well. Kind of a guy that is, well, he's kind of hit a little bit of a full circle here. And baseball player that is heading to the World Series for the first time in a while. And I would consider him as part of the Hall of Very Good. like kind of a guy like Joey Votto,
Right.
maybe like an Elvis, and he's better than Elvis Andrews. But who I'm talking about is Evan Longoria, who
Wow.
he obviously, like, he's known for being part of Tampa Bay. Had the huge home run in game 162 and back in 2011. And he went to the World Series in his first year
Yep.
in 2008 with the Rays. He's been in the league since then, hasn't been back to the World Series until now. And I don't know if he's going to retire at the end of the year. I mean, he probably still has a couple years left. But it kind of just shows you the resiliency, because like a guy that, like, he was on a lot of those bad Rays teams, but
Yeah.
then when they started getting good again, he was still there. And he kind of became, like, I would say he's probably the most famous Tampa Bay Ray, like most well known. Like if you're thinking like long standing franchisee type of guy, he's probably that guy.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think it's really interesting, and I hope he has at least a moment in the World Series where he does something pretty cool.
Yeah, he can still play. And they say that he's the heart and soul and leader of that team. You know, I know this was his first year there because he was with the Giants, I think, the last 3 years or so. But it's because he missed when they went to the World Series again. He wasn't with them that year when they, lost to the Dodgers, right? Lost to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'd love to see Evan Longoria come up in a big spot and hit a big home run. That'd be great. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. He was with the Giants actually for 5 years.
Oh, he was with them for that long. I didn't realize that. Okay. So he's been gone from Tampa for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. That's a really good one. Evan Longoria. Shout out. He always carried himself well, was an all-star several years, with Tampa, became the leader of that team too, pretty quickly at a young age. So, all right, brother, take us home.
All righty. This is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next time.
Absolutely. Lots more to come next week.